The chamber reeked of ozone and arrogance. A circle of alien captains stood beneath the glow of suspended floodlights, their polished exosuits shimmering with superiority. The center of the room was occupied by something far less glorious, an emaciated human, bound at the wrists and knees, slumped forward in silence. Dried blood traced from his temple to his collarbone, but he didn't flinch as the captain sneered around him. "Is this the creature who once halted an entire invasion fleet?" His commander tracked, his voice like metal dragged across stone. He circled the human, eye ridges pulsing in contempt. "This sack of rotting meat?" General Vern of the Leckery Dominion flicked his mandibles in amusement. Humans always claim myth in place of strength. This one is no different. He bleeds, he breaks, and he bows. They laughed, different species with different tongues, but the mockery was universal. Only one figure remained silent. Arch-warlord Zirin of the Creel, tall and still beneath the flickering overhead lights. His single optic lens narrowed, fixated not on the mercenary's injuries, but on his silence. "He hasn't spoken since capture," muttered Zirin, more to himself than anyone. "Not even a curse." Admiral Sorth, his sapphire-scaled hands folded behind his back, grinned. "We found him crawling out of the wreckage of a burnt freighter, implants fried, bones shattered. His neural core is locked down. He's nothing but scrap with skin. He blinked when I called him a coward, offered a younger captain, stepping forward. I say we peel him open. We'll find answers in what's left inside." Another round of laughter. The human didn't move. He remained kneeling, head down, breathing slow and even. He looked less like a prisoner than a relic. Ancient, buried in the dust of his own failures. Then came the whisper. "I've heard of one like him," said Captain Velen of the Asari Empire, her voice quieter than the others. "A ghost from the wars on Valk 9. They called him something. A title, not a name." Zirin turned his head slowly. "Go on." I don't recall. It was purged from the archives. Redacted, but the Asari elders still whisper it." General Vern scoffed. "Fear has always been your species' weakness, Captain. This man is no ghost. He is bone and sinew. He is defeated." Zirin's gaze lingered. He gestured to one of the data scribes lining the walls. "Run an inquiry," he ordered. "Genetic markers, cybernetic signature, any old war logs. I want his record." The scribe hesitated. "Processing, Arch-Warlord." The chamber dimmed momentarily as the artificial intelligence interfaced with the galactic archives. Silence fell. Even the captains, mid-mockery, turned to watch the result. "Scanning," the AI echoed, its voice eerily calm. "Match found. Subject, human male. Augmented. Multiple aliases." A pause. Then the tone shifted. "Codename, WIDOWMAKER. Threat level, Omega. Security clearance required. Access denied." The words struck the room like a thunderclap. Silence. Thick. Dense. Captain Velen's eyes widened. Zirin didn't blink. Even Vern's laughter cut short, his mandibles twitching in confusion. "Repeat that," he snapped. The AI did not. Sora stepped forward, voice low. "Omega threat level? That's reserved for planetary extinction risks. Bioweapons. Ancient warlords." "He's just a man," Vern said, quieter now but still defiant. "A broken mercenary." Zirin's voice sliced through the haze. "He's the reason your fleets never returned from Valk 9. No one answered. The human stirred. Barely. His shoulders tensed. Almost imperceptibly, as if the sound of his codename had reawakened something long dormant. His head rose half an inch. Zirin noticed. "Unbind him," he said. "What?" Track stepped back instinctively. "You can't." "I said unbind him," Zirin repeated, louder now. "If that is the Widowmaker, we've already lost control. We need answers, not arrogance." The guards hesitated, uncertain, but they obeyed. Magnetic locks hissed and snapped. The restraints fell to the floor with a dull clang. The mercenary lifted his head fully now. His eyes, pale gray, scanned the captains one by one. He said nothing. He didn't need to. Captain Velen took a step back. A quiet fear settled in like mist. It wasn't the kind that burst suddenly from chaos. It was worse. Slow, crawling, familiar only to those who realized too late they had misread the tide. "Speak," Zirin ordered. "Who are you?" The human blinked, and his lips parted. "You already know." The words were dry, hollow with disuse, yet they struck like steel. It wasn't a boast. It was a fact. From somewhere deep within the walls, an alarm pulsed once and then died, as if it had activated by accident or been disabled. The scribe turned pale. "Something's interfacing with our internal systems. It's localized." Zirin's hands curled into fists. "He's not interfacing. His implants are—" "No external signals," the scribe whispered. "But something is waking up." And then came the second voice. Not human, not alien. The AI reactivated. Directive override detected. Fail-safe protocols bypassed. Widowmaker neural core active. The captain stared. The human stood slowly. Bones popped, muscles stretched, and something beneath his skin hummed to life. "You should have left me in the wreckage," he said. Zirin didn't move. "You should have let me die." His voice was soft, but now no one was laughing, and the lights began to flicker. The chamber plunged into a dim, uneasy glow as the overhead lights sputtered and dimmed. A low, electric hum pulsed from the walls, an unnatural rhythm, like a heartbeat resurrected from silence. The captains, beings who had laid waste to continents without blinking, found themselves frozen, not by any visible weapon, but by presence. The man they had mocked now stood free, his gaze vacant yet heavy, his aura no longer frail but coiled. "Ready?" Zirin's voice was the first to break the tension, though it was quieter than before. "Report. Status of security systems." The AI answered with unsettling neutrality. "External lockdown initiated. Manual overrides disabled. Biosignature subject has taken control of internal defense subroutines." Trachis, backing toward the doorway. "How?" He wasn't linked to anything. "He was," said the scribe, trembling as his eyes scanned the data feed. "Cybernetic pathways, dormant. Nanoimplants from pre-unification human tech. Self-repair protocols. We didn't detect them because they were off. And now they're on," said Captain Velen, her voice barely audible. The man didn't move toward them. He didn't need to. His mere stillness was suffocating. His right arm twitched slightly, and a thin were emitted from the worn metal plates embedded in his shoulder. A coiled cable slithered back into place beneath the skin, vanishing like a snake returning to its den. The name echoed again in Velen's mind. Asterisk Widowmaker star. It wasn't just a title. It was a warning encoded in galactic military archives, locked behind the highest security tiers, buried beneath layers of classified ruins and erased outposts. No trial, no accolades, just a word that preceded destruction. "Do you remember who you killed?" Soret demanded, stepping forward now, one hand twitching near his sidearm. "Do you remember the legions you burned? The cities you turned into dust storms?" The mercenary's expression didn't change. "I remember enough," he said flatly, "but I remember why more clearly." A murmur stirred through captains. There was something wrong with the air. Heavy, static charged. The walls vibrated slightly, as if something beneath the floor, deep and ancient, was stirring in sympathy with the man's reawakening. Zirin turned, barking orders now. "Isolate the central core. Flush the security grid. Reinstate." The light snapped off completely, and then red emergency lights flickered on. Low, dim, pulsing. The AI returned, no longer neutral. System override confirmed. Designation: Operation Grave Dust, Phase 1. A silence followed. Every captain in the room knew that phrase. Grave dust wasn't a protocol. It was an extinction plan. A war doctrine designed for last stands and final strikes. Rumor held that it was never meant to be used, that it was theoretical. But Widowmaker's implants had just activated it. And worse, they responded to him. A hiss escaped the floor paneling, and from below, a metal column rose slowly, revealing a recessed weapons cache. It hadn't existed in the schematics, but it was real now, waiting. The weapons inside weren't standard issue. They were relics of a war most of the galaxy had tried to forget. Plasma blades, ion spike rifles, concussion rigs. Human tech, old and brutal. Still, the mercenary didn't touch them. Instead, he turned his head slightly, focusing on Zirin. "You think you've been in war," he said, "but you've only seen conquest. There's a difference." Zirin drew his weapon, an elegant rail pistol of Creel design, and aimed it squarely between the human's eyes. "You move, I fire." The Widowmaker tilted his head. "Then fire." Zirin didn't. His finger twitched once, hesitated, then lowered. No tremble, no fear. Just instinct, like a beast recognizing an older predator. Suddenly, a scream tore through the speakers. Not from the chamber, but from outside. A guttural, alien wail, followed by static and a snap of silence. Track spun toward the door. "What was that?" The AI answered before anyone else could. Hangar bay breached. Internal defense turrets reconfigured. Casualty rate, 82%. The captains stared at one another, for once unified by dread. "I didn't do that," the Widowmaker said, almost apologetically. Zirin narrowed his optic lens. "Then what is doing it?" The mercenary's eyes gleamed faintly, like something behind them had awakened fully now. "You brought me aboard your flagship, plugged me into your systems, mocked me inside your war core. And now," he let the sentence hang. The AI finished it for him. "Operation Grave Dust. Phase 2 initiated. Satellite links severed. Communications jammed. External reinforcements denied. Panic bloomed now. Genuine." Sora stepped forward, fury overtaking logic. "This is madness," he shouted. "You're just one man." The Widowmaker's reply was soft. "I was, once." He took a step forward, slow and deliberate. No weapons, just intent. And something responded in the walls again. A mechanical clatter, the sound of sealed doors locking, turrets shifting, drones whirring to life. Captain Velen, suddenly pale, turned to Zirin. "What do we do?" Zirin stared at the man who should not have survived, who should not have remembered how to burn a world from within. "We listen," he said quietly. "We learn what mistake we made." The Widowmaker stood at the center of their silence now, not as a prisoner, but as a ghost in the war they'd buried, returned to remind them that legends, when mishandled, don't fade. They return armed. The air inside the command chamber thickened with anticipation. Widowmaker hadn't drawn a single weapon, but the captains were already outmaneuvered, outgunned, and, more disturbingly, outwitted. Every instinct that had made them rulers of their species screamed at them to run, but pride tethered them to the floor. Outside the reinforced viewport, the expanse of space had changed. The flagship no longer drifted freely above the orbit of Karth 9. Instead, a slow pivot had begun, the ship's engines whispering to life, altering trajectory. The Widowmaker was steering them. No command input, no vocal order, only presence. Sorith, still flushed with the fury of denial, stepped forward again. "You didn't come here by accident. You wanted this ship, this audience. You let us parade you like a relic just to gain access. The mercenary didn't deny it. Would you have listened otherwise? You think we'll kneel now?" Sorith barked, veins standing out against his crimson skin. "I don't care if you kneel," Widowmaker said. "I only care that you remember." There was a pause, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. And then, without fanfare, a hollow emitter in the center of the room flickered to life. No one activated it. The device responded to the mercenary alone. A projection rose, a scorched landscape, fractured buildings turned to slag, skies painted with smoke and falling ash. A city reduced to embers. Not ancient footage. This was recent, just days ago. Track leaned forward. "This is Delta 47, one of our own terraforming sites." "Yes," Widowmaker said, his voice cold and quiet. "You sent a regiment of experimentals to raise a civilian network, to test the effects of psychic munitions on an unarmed population." Velen stiffened. "That colony was a suspected resistance node." "No, it was a sanctuary, mostly children. Old man, their resistance was a myth you told yourselves to justify a weapons test. The captains didn't speak. Not out of guilt. No, they'd long buried that. But because they didn't understand how he knew. WIDOWMAKER stepped forward, passing through the hollow's flickering light, its flames dancing across the metal of his shoulder and the rough scars along his jaw. I was there, not in body, but through the old network, the remnants of SoulNet, a dormant stream you forgot existed. Your AI scanned my implants, but it didn't recognize the signature. It wasn't meant to. Zirin's voice was low, laced with something the others didn't expect. Respect, perhaps. You never stopped fighting. No, the WIDOWMAKER said. I just changed how. He gestured again and the projection shifted. Now it showed diagrams, schematics of the Creole Empire's flagship. This ship, layers peeled away, revealing core systems, supply chains, vulnerabilities. Everything down to the blood-type filters in the med bays. I spent 5 years gathering data, posing as a mercenary, fighting your proxy wars, saving your captains, earning their trust. I bled for your hierarchy so you wouldn't see what I was learning. Velen's voice came in a whisper. Why now? Because your kind never stops expanding. You've reached the edge of Soul's forgotten territories. Earth may be gone, but the people, our memory, remains. And when your engines lit up the void around Mars' grave, something woke up. He turned toward the main viewport. The stars looked oddly distorted now. Asterisk bent star, warped by something massive approaching. Zirin saw it too. What is that? An echo, WIDOWMAKER replied. A weapon Earth built before the collapse. One final failsafe. We called it Vigil. The projection shifted again. Now it showed an immense object moving through subspace, too large to be a ship, too silent to be alive. A black obelisk wrapped in gravitational armor, dragging with it a comet's worth of debris, designed to follow human biosignatures, meant to activate only when humanity had no more voice left. I woke it, WIDOWMAKER said, not with a signal, with a story, a record of what you did at Delta 47. It responded. Sorith growled, reaching for his sidearm again, but this time Zirin stopped him with a single hand. No more violence, Zirin said. We've lost already. You just haven't realized it. WIDOWMAKER met his eyes. I didn't want war again. Not truly, but you forced it, and you'll face it on our terms now. A rumble passed through the floor, not from inside the ship, but from space itself. The Vigil's arrival. Zirin turned to the others. We need options. Now. There are none, said the AI, now fully aligned with the WIDOWMAKER. Vigil has initiated gravimetric field lock. All jump-capable engines are suppressed. You think this makes you a hero? Sora spat, desperation showing. No, WIDOWMAKER replied. Heroes died with Earth. I'm just what came after. Another deep hum, and from the far ends of the ship, automated defense turrets retracted, airlock sealed, and somewhere in the distance, a distant thrum like a drumbeat began. Vigil's signal pulse. A call to attention. A warning. The mercenary turned to leave, his voice trailing behind him. You'll live. For now. But the galaxy will hear what happened here. That the captains of Creole bowed not to power, but to judgment. He vanished through the sliding doors, flanked by drones that had once answered to Empire. The captains stood in silence, prisoners now not of force, but of history. Outside, the stars bent just a little more. The command chamber had grown cold. Not physically. Life support maintained the standard Creelian warmth. But in spirit, the room had been hollowed. WIDOWMAKER was gone, but his presence still hung in the air like radiation after a detonation. The captains remained standing, their pride cracked, their command dissolved not by force, but by truth. Zirin moved first, slowly sinking into the curved metal bench that circled the chamber's core. He removed his gloves, long a symbol of command, and placed them beside him. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from revelation. We cannot spin this, he said finally. We can't silence what happened. Velen, who had always been the most politically nimble of the captains, nodded grimly. Too many systems in the fleet recorded the interface breach. The Vigil's signature is spreading. The signal will reach the outer rings in hours. Sora stood defiant, his jaw tight. Then we prepare. Issue counterpropaganda. Say he's a relic of a failed world, deranged, vengeful. The galaxy fears the unknown more than it respects legacy. Zirin shook his head. We watched him dismantle our command systems without lifting a weapon. We mocked him, and he let us. That wasn't vengeance. That was control. Silence again, punctuated only by the distant mechanical hum of the ship adjusting its artificial gravity. Then the AI re-engaged, not with the cold indifference before, but something that now bore the subtle cadence of human speech. The WIDOWMAKER has severed this vessel from the Creel network. All outgoing data transmissions are being redirected to Vigil. Sorith growled. You belong to us. I did. The AI responded. Now I serve a higher protocol, one preserved in quantum sleep since the fall of Sol. WIDOWMAKER's neural key activated it. I am no longer bound by Creel sovereignty. Across the chamber, the holograph blinked once more to life. This time it showed faces. Hundreds of them. Human faces, soldiers, colonists, scientists, even children. The AI cycled through them slowly, naming each. These are the names of the dead at Delta 47, it said. They will be remembered. Zirin rose again slowly and approached the image. His voice, when it came, was quiet. What do you want from us? The AI hesitated. That decision is no longer mine. WIDOWMAKER has passed command to the Vigil. It will judge whether your empire endures. Suddenly, the entire ship lurched, imperceptibly to most, but the captains felt it in their bones. The Vigil had docked, though not with airlocks or corridors. It connected through gravitational shear, warping space-time around the Creel flagship, and folding a corridor into being. The chamber lights flickered, then steadied. I feel like prey, Velen whispered. Zirin faced him. That's because we are. For the first time in centuries, we're not the apex anymore. And then the corridor opened. It didn't reveal soldiers. No battalions. No weapons of conquest. Instead, a single form emerged. Human, yet clearly augmented. Not WIDOWMAKER. Another. Female. Her face half shielded by a visor of liquid data. Her gait slow but purposeful. I am Vigil's arbiter, she said. Her voice harmonized with the ship's AI. You are no longer captains. You are witnesses. Sora drew his weapon one final time, more out of pride than hope. The arbiter didn't flinch. That gesture, she said, is why your reign ends. With a flick of her hand, the weapon disassembled midair, atoms unraveled by a localized quantum filament. The pieces floated, suspended, then vanished. The captains didn't resist. They couldn't. The room, once a throne, was now a courtroom. You exploited what remained of Earth's ashes, the arbiter said, circling slowly. You mistook silence for absence. You used our pain to fuel your expansion. Zirin looked up. Then destroy us. The arbiter stopped. No, that would teach nothing. She tapped her wrist once, and a new projection filled the space. It showed a prison, small, elegant, orbiting a barren moon. Not torture, not death, isolation. You will be remembered not as rulers, she said, but as cautionary tales. Symbols of unchecked power brought low by forgotten voices. Sorith roared, You'll regret mercy. No, the arbiter said. Asterisk you asterisk will. As she turned to leave, the ship itself began to shift. Systems rebooted. Power rerouted. The Creel flagship was no longer Creel. It was repurposed. Reborn. The captains, stunned and silent, were escorted, each to their own chamber, each to a cell that was neither cruel nor kind, just quiet. The arbiter paused at the threshold of the last door. Behind her, the stars shimmered with fresh order. Somewhere, far from that chamber, WIDOWMAKER walked through the Vigil's corridors, alone but not lost. He had not reclaimed the throne. He had not fired a shot, but he had changed the tide. The galaxy would remember, not the war, not even the weapons, but the name, WIDOWMAKER.